The Last Guardian. The vast emptiness of the Andromeda sector's outer rim held many secrets, but none quite like the massive vessel that drifted silently through the void. The ship's hull, nearly 3 kilometers long, bore the scars of ancient battles and the wear of centuries. Its designation, barely visible under layers of cosmic dust, read HES NEMESIS. For the past 300 years, the Archean Empire had ruled the known galaxy with an iron grip. Their biomechanical warships and ruthless tactics had crushed all opposition, reducing once proud civilizations to mere footnotes in their grand archive of conquests. But today, their dominion would face its first real challenge in centuries. A small Archean patrol vessel, making its routine sweep of the sector, detected an anomalous energy signature. Captain Zexthor, a veteran of the Empire's expansion wars, felt his secondary heart skip a beat as his sensors officer reported the findings. "Sir, the signature. It matches nothing in our database. The ship appears to be of human origin." The word human sent a ripple of unease through the bridge crew. Humans were supposed to be extinct, wiped out in the Great Purge before the Empire's rise. Their technology, their weapons, their very existence had been systematically erased from the galaxy. Yet here, in the empty reaches of space, floated proof that something had survived. Deep within the Nemesis, automated systems began their awakening sequence. In a sealed chamber at the heart of the vessel, a single stasis pod hummed to life. Commander Sarah Chen, last guardian of Earth's legacy, opened her eyes for the first time in 3 centuries. The neural interface connected to her consciousness immediately began feeding her information about the ship's status and the current situation. "Ship status report," she commanded, her voice hoarse from centuries of disuse. "HES Nemesis operational at 87% capacity," the ship's eye responded. "Warning, unknown vessel approaching. Configuration suggests hostile intent." Sarah's mind raced as she absorbed the situation. The last thing she remembered was the fall of Earth, the desperate decision to preserve humanity's most advanced warship and its technology until a time when it could make a difference. They had succeeded in saving the Nemesis, but at what cost? "Multiple energy signatures detected," the AI continued. "The approaching vessel is attempting to establish a boarding link." Sarah smiled grimly as she donned her command armor, its powered systems interfacing seamlessly with her neural implants. The Nemesis had been designed as humanity's ultimate weapon, a ship capable of taking on entire fleets. These unknowns were about to learn why the human race had been feared throughout the galaxy. On the Archean vessel, Captain Zexthor watched in fascination as his boarding parties attempted to breach the massive human ship. Their standard cutting tools barely scratched the surface of the unknown alloy that made up the hull. "Impossible," he muttered. "No material should be this resistant to our technology." The first sign that something was wrong came when all of his boarding parties simultaneously lost contact. The second came when his sensors officer screamed in terror. The human vessel, previously dormant, had begun to move. Energy readings spiked to levels his instruments couldn't measure. Sarah stood on the Nemesis's bridge, now fully awake and connected to her ship's systems. Through the neural interface, she could feel every aspect of the massive vessel as if it were an extension of her own body. The enemy ship before her was impressive by most standards, but to the Nemesis, it was barely a threat. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the human spaceship Nemesis," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You have exactly 1 chance to surrender and provide me with information about the current state of the galaxy. Otherwise, I will be forced to demonstrate why humanity was once the most feared species in space." The response came in the form of weapons fire, energy beams lancing out from the Archean vessel toward the Nemesis. Sarah watched with cold satisfaction as the attacks dissipated harmlessly against her ship's shields. "Very well," she said quietly. "Let's remind the galaxy why they feared us." The Nemesis' response was devastating in its precision. A single shot from its main weapon, a graviton lance that could tear apart the fabric of space itself, reduced the Archean ship to its component atoms. As the enemy vessel disappeared in a flash of light, Sarah accessed the ship's long-range sensors, scanning the galaxy that had changed so much during her long sleep. Well, she said to herself, watching as data about the Arxian Empire's atrocities scrolled across her display, it seems humanity has work to do. Set course for the nearest populated system. It's time to show these tyrants what happens when they build their empire on the graves of their betters. The HSS Nemesis accelerated to faster-than-light speed, leaving behind only debris and a message that would soon spread throughout the Arxian Empire. Humanity had returned, and with it, hope for all those who suffered under imperial rule. Rising Storm. The mining colony of New Haven was like countless others under Arxian rule, a place where hope went to die. Massive excavators tore into the planet's surface day and night, extracting precious materials for the Empire's endless expansion. The colony's inhabitants, a mix of various alien species, worked until they dropped, knowing resistance meant death. That was until the day the sky turned silver. The HSS Nemesis dropped out of FTL flight directly above the colony's main settlement, its massive form blocking out the system's twin suns. The Arxian overseers scrambled for their weapons as warning sirens blared across the complex. In orbit, the two Imperial patrol ships assigned to guard the colony moved to intercept. Commander Sarah Chen watched from her bridge as the patrol ships approached, their weapons charging. Tactical analysis, she commanded. Enemy vessels utilizing standard Arxian configurations. The Nemesis I responded. Shield technology inferior. Weapon systems primarily focused on atmospheric bombardment. Threat level minimal. Sarah nodded, her neural interface feeding her real-time data about the colony below. Interesting. They're using the civilians as shields. Station heavy weapons batteries around residential areas. She opened a channel to the surface. This is Commander Chen of the HSS Nemesis. I'm not here for the civilians. Surrender your posts, and you may live. The response came in the form of plasma torpedoes from the patrol ships. Sarah didn't even need to issue orders. The Nemesis point defense systems automatically intercepted the attacks, turning them into harmless light shows. What followed wasn't even a battle. The patrol ship's shields crumpled under precisely targeted graviton beams, leaving them dead in space. But Sarah wasn't interested in destroying them. Instead, the Nemesis launched boarding pods, each containing combat drones programmed with centuries of human military tactics. The Arxian crews never stood a chance against the lightning-fast machines that cut through their corridors with surgical precision. Within minutes, both ships were secured, their crews captured and their databases being downloaded into the Nemesis' systems. On the surface, the overseers found themselves surrounded by more combat drones, their weapons useless against the advanced technology. Sarah walked through New Haven streets an hour later, her command armor drawing odd stares from the colonists. Behind her, drone units herded captured Arxian officials toward temporary holding cells. She stopped at the colony's central square, where thousands of workers had gathered. "My name is Commander Sarah Chen," she announced, her voice carrying across the crowd. "I represent what's left of humanity. A species the Arxian Empire tried to erase from history, but they failed. And now, I'm here to offer you a choice." She gestured to the Nemesis hovering above. "That ship carries enough firepower to level continents, but it also carries something more valuable, hope. The Empire isn't invincible. Their technology isn't superior. Their rule isn't absolute. We can fight back." A murmur ran through the crowd. An elderly Zentarian stepped forward, his crystalline form dimmed by years of hard labor. "Fight back? With what? They'll just send more ships, more troops. They'll bomb us from orbit." Sarah smiled. "Not if we have their ships." She pointed to the captured patrol vessels. "Those are yours now, along with their weapons, their shields, and most importantly, their command codes. My drones can teach your people how to operate them. But more than that, I can teach you how to fight." The crowd stirred again, this time with something that hadn't been seen in New Haven for generations: hope. Sarah continued, The Empire maintains control through fear and ignorance. They don't want you to know that their ships can be beaten. Their troops can be defeated. They don't want you to know that united, you're stronger than they are. She activated a holographic display, showing the data retrieved from the patrol ships. These vessels were part of a standard Imperial patrol route. Every 3 days, ships just like these visit dozens of mining colonies. Imagine if, instead of finding obedient slaves, they found armed resistance. Imagine if every patrol they sent out never returned. The Zentarian's crystalline form brightened slightly. You're talking about rebellion, about war. I'm talking about freedom, Sarah corrected. The Empire took everything from humanity. We won't get it back. But we can ensure they never do the same to anyone else. She looked around the square, meeting the eyes of various species. I can't promise victory. I can't even promise survival. But I can promise you this: if you join me, you'll never be slaves again. One by one, then in groups, the colonists stepped forward. Sarah nodded to her drone commanders, beginning the process of training and arming their new allies. As she walked back to her shuttle, she received a report from the Nemesis's eye. Analysis of patrol ship data complete. Similar mining colonies detected in 12 nearby systems, all operating under identical security protocols. Sarah smiled as she boarded her shuttle. The Empire had grown complacent in its power, using the same tactics, the same protocols across its vast territory. They never expected resistance, never planned for rebellion. That would be their downfall. Set course for the next colony, she ordered, and prepare a full tactical briefing for our new allies. It's time to show the Empire that the storm they thought they weathered 3 centuries ago was just the beginning. As the Nemesis prepared to jump to its next target, Sarah watched New Haven's residents begin their transformation from slaves to soldiers. The Empire had spent centuries building its power through fear. Now they would learn what real fear felt like. The fear of facing an enemy they thought they had destroyed, armed with technology they couldn't understand, leading a rebellion they couldn't predict. The storm was rising, and this time, humanity wouldn't face it alone. Breaking chains. The Imperial Palace on Arxos Prime buzzed with unprecedented activity. Emergency meetings filled every chamber as reports flooded in from across the Empire. High Admiral Vextar stood before the Imperial Council, his normally pristine uniform showing signs of stress and fatigue. Another system has gone dark, he reported, his voice tight with controlled fear. The mining colony at Helios 7 has ceased all communications. Initial investigation teams failed to report back. When we sent a battle group to investigate, he paused, mandibles clicking nervously. The entire group was destroyed. We found only debris and a message. The chains are breaking. Supreme Overlord Cathax rose from his crystalline throne, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. How many now? He demanded, voice resonating with barely contained rage. 17 systems in the past month alone, my lord. The rebellion spreads like a virus. Every colony we lose seems to strengthen their forces. They're using our own ships against us, but modified with technology we can't comprehend. Meanwhile, light years away, the HSS Nemesis led a fleet of captured and converted Imperial vessels through hyperspace. Commander Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, reviewing tactical displays showing their next target, the Arxian shipyards at Nexus Station. Status report on the fleet, she commanded. 27 vessels combat ready, the AI responded. Crew training at 89% efficiency. Human combat protocols fully integrated into all ship's systems. Resistance forces report high morale. Sarah nodded, studying the holographic display of their target. Nexus Station was more than just a shipyard. It was a symbol of Imperial power in this sector. Taking it would do more than just deny the Empire its production capacity. It would show every oppressed world that the invincible Arxians could be beaten. Open channel to all ships, she ordered. The communication system crackled to life, connecting her to the thousands of former slaves who now crewed their liberation fleet. Each ship was commanded by those who had suffered most under Imperial rule, trained by the Nemesis's combat drones in human military tactics. This is Commander Chen. Nexus Station lies ahead, the heart of Imperial power in this sector. They believe their defenses are impenetrable. They believe their forces are superior. 3 centuries ago, the Arxians thought the same about humanity. They were wrong then. They're wrong now. She paused, letting her words sink in. Every ship in this fleet was once a tool of oppression. Now they're weapons of liberation. Every crew member was once a slave. Now you're warriors. The Empire thought they could break you. Instead, you've become their nightmare. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, a maneuver that would have been impossible just months ago. Nexus Station loomed before them, its massive construction docks holding half-finished Imperial warships. The station's defenses came alive, its garrison fleet moving to intercept. Enemy forces deploying in standard Imperial combat formation, the AI reported. They outnumber us 3-1. Sarah smiled. Just like we predicted. Execute Operation Thunderbreak. The rebellion fleet split apart, each ship moving with precision that confused the Imperial commanders. This wasn't the chaos they expected from rebel forces. This was coordinated, professional military action. Before they could adjust their tactics, the trap was sprung. The Nemesis's graviton lance carved through space, not targeting the Imperial ships, but the station's main power core. As emergency systems engage, the rebel fleet struck from multiple vectors, using modified weapons that bypassed Imperial shields as if they didn't exist. They're throwing everything at us, Sarah observed, watching as the garrison fleet tried to compensate. Just as planned. Signal the second wave. From behind Nexus Station's moon, another fleet emerged, more converted Imperial ships, crewed by newly freed slaves from the previous week's liberation of the Helios system. The garrison fleet found itself caught in a perfect crossfire, facing tactics and technology they had no defense against. On the Imperial command deck, the station commander watched in horror as his forces were systematically dismantled. These weren't the desperate actions of rebels. This was warfare on a level he'd never seen. Each rebel ship moved with purpose, their attacks coordinated with devastating efficiency. Sarah's voice echoed through every communication channel in the system. To all Imperial forces at Nexus Station, you are witnessing the end of your dominion. Every ship we destroy provides resources for our cause. Every world we free joins our fight. You built your empire on the bones of conquered species, never imagining they would rise against you. That was your final mistake. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, Nexus Station and its entire garrison fleet had been captured intact. The shipyards that once built Imperial warships would now produce vessels for the rebellion. More importantly, the station's communication hub provided access to Imperial networks across the sector. Sarah walked through the captured station's corridors, watching as former slaves began the process of converting it into a rebel stronghold. Each step they took weakened the Empire's grip on power. Each victory brought more systems to their cause. Send word to all resistance cells, she ordered. The chains are breaking. The storm is spreading. The time for hiding is over. She paused, looking out at the stars through the station's observation deck. And send a special message to Arxos Prime. Tell them, humanity remembers. Humanity returns. Humanity brings justice. Throughout the sector, the message spread. The empire that had ruled through fear for centuries was now learning to fear itself. The storm that began with one human warship had become an unstoppable force of liberation. The chains were breaking, and nothing in the galaxy could repair them. The Empire's fear. Supreme Overlord Cathax stood alone in his private chambers aboard the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, watching security footage from a dozen fallen worlds. Each recording showed the same pattern: precision strikes, advanced technology, and perfect coordination between former slaves turned warriors. But what troubled him most was the fear he saw in his own force's eyes. The door chimed. "Enter," he commanded, not turning from the displays. High Admiral Vextar stepped in, followed by the Empire's Chief Intelligence Director, Sinra. Neither spoke immediately, knowing their news would only worsen their leader's mood. "Report," Cathax ordered. Sinra stepped forward, her crystalline form dulled with stress. "My lord, we've lost contact with 3 more sector fleets. The outer colonies are in open revolt. Our own ships are being turned against us, modified with technology we can't counter." "And the human?" Cathax demanded. "Commander Chen continues to lead the rebellion personally," Vextar answered. "The HSS Nemesis appears at every major engagement, but we can never predict where they'll strike next. Our tactical protocols are useless. They seem to know our every move before we make it." Cathax finally turned, his massive form looming over his subordinates. How does one human in an ancient warship inspire such loyalty? How does she coordinate attacks across entire sectors? How does she transform slaves into soldiers capable of defeating our best forces? "My lord," Sinra began carefully, "we've analyzed their tactics. They're using military strategies from Earth's final war, the same war where we thought we'd eliminated humanity. But they're combining them with technologies we've never seen. Each defeat teaches them more about our weaknesses." The chamber's displays suddenly flickered, showing new reports of uprising. Thax watched as another sector declared independence from the Empire, its defense fleet joining the rebellion without firing a shot. "Our own forces are starting to question our power," Vextar admitted. "The myth of imperial invincibility is breaking. Every victory the rebels achieve spreads hope to other worlds. We're losing control." Thax smashed his fist into a nearby console, shattering it. "Then we will show them true power. Gather the home fleet. Every ship, every soldier. We will crush this rebellion at its heart." "My lord," Sinra interjected, "if we concentrate our forces, we risk losing more territory." "The territory means nothing if we lose control," Thax roared. "This human, this Commander Chen, she doesn't just attack our ships and stations. She attacks our authority. Every world that joins her weakens the fear we've spent centuries building. Find her. Find the Nemesis. Everything else is secondary." Meanwhile, aboard a rebel supply ship near the former Imperial world of New Haven, a young Centurion engineer named Kix worked frantically on a captured Imperial fighter. Human-designed combat drones assisted him, their movements precise and purposeful. "The power coupling is integrated," he reported through his communicator. "Just like Commander Chen showed us. The Imperial engine now accepts the human graviton modifications." Similar scenes play out across dozens of rebel-held systems. Former slaves learn to combine Imperial and human technology, creating hybrid weapons that their former masters couldn't counter. But more importantly, they learn to think differently, to question, to innovate, to fight back. On the bridge of the HSS Nemesis, Sarah Chen reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Empire was gathering its forces, just as she predicted. Their pride wouldn't allow them to do anything else. "Status of Operation Shadowfall," she asked her eye. "All components in place," it responded. "Rebel cells report ready in 27 systems. Imperial communications network remains compromised. Estimated probability of success, 82%. Sarah nodded, studying the tactical display. The Empire's massive fleet gathering would look like strength to most observers. But she saw it differently. She saw desperation. They were abandoning their carefully maintained patrol routes, their defensive positions, all to strike at a single target. "Send word to all rebel commands," she ordered. "The Empire gathers its strength for one final battle. They think they're preparing to crush us. Instead, they're walking into a trap centuries in the making." Across rebel-held space, former slaves turned warriors received their orders. Ships moved into position. Weapons were prepared. The Empire's great fleet would indeed find their enemy, but not where or how they expected. In his chambers, Kithax received a direct message, broadcast somehow through the Empire's most secure channels. To Supreme Overlord Kithax of the Arxian Empire, you believed you could build an empire on the graves of better civilizations. You thought you could rule through fear forever, but you forgot something crucial. Fear can turn to anger. Anger can turn to strength. And strength, properly guided, can break any chain. Humanity remembers. Humanity returns. And humanity brings with it the one thing you never expected your slaves to find: hope. The message ended with a set of coordinates, a direct challenge. Fax smiled coldly. Finally, a chance to crush this rebellion at its source. He gave the order, and the greatest fleet in Imperial history began to move. But as the Empire's ships gathered for their final battle, they didn't realize they were playing exactly into Commander Chen's hands. The trap was set. The Empire's fear would be their undoing. And the galaxy was about to witness the greatest revolution in its history. Liberation's dawn. The coordinates Commander Chen had provided led to an unremarkable star system on the edge of Empire space. Its single habitable planet, a rocky world called Terminus, held no strategic value. As the massive Imperial fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their sensors showed only empty space. No rebel fleet, no defense stations, not even orbital satellites. Supreme Overlord Kithax stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his flagship now surrounded by 10,000 of the Empire's finest warships. Another of her tricks, he growled. Spread the fleet. Find her. Before his orders could be carried out, space itself seemed to tear open. The HSS Nemesis emerged from what appeared to be a fold in reality, a technology the Empire had never seen. But it wasn't alone. All around the Imperial fleet, similar ruptures appeared, disgorging hundreds of modified rebel ships. Imperial fleet. Sarah Chen's voice echoed through every ship's communications. Look around you. Every system you abandoned to hunt us is now free. Every patrol route you left unguarded is now under rebel control. You've gathered your strength here, exactly as we planned. Now you face not just humanity's legacy, but the combined might of every species you tried to enslave. Kithax watched in growing horror as more ships appeared, not just converted Imperial vessels, but ships of designs he'd never seen. The rebel fleet had been busy, combining human technology with knowledge from a dozen species to create something entirely new. All ships, open fire, he commanded. Crush them. The space between the fleets erupted in energy as the battle began. But this wasn't the chaotic rebellion the Empire had faced before. This was a coordinated assault, led by commanders trained in human military tactics and equipped with technology that made Imperial weapons look primitive. The Nemesis moved through the Imperial formation like a blade, its graviton lance cutting through multiple ships with each shot. Behind it, rebel vessels executed complex maneuvers that confused Imperial targeting systems. Former slaves, now trained warriors, proved that their intimate knowledge of Imperial ships made them deadly opponents. On the Nemesis's bridge, Sarah Chen coordinated the battle through her neural interface, directing forces with inhuman precision. Execute Operation Thunderfall, she commanded. Throughout the rebel fleet, specially modified ships activated devices that the Empire had never seen before. Suddenly, Imperial ships found their weapons failing, their shields collapsing. The technology they had relied on for centuries was being turned against them by enemies who understood it better than they did. What's happening? Kithax demanded as systems throughout his flagship began to fail. My lord, his chief engineer reported, panic in his voice, they're using our own control protocols against us. Somehow they've accessed the core command architecture of every ship in the fleet. Sarah's voice filled the Imperial command channel again. Did you think we spent these months only fighting? Every ship we captured taught us more about your weaknesses. Every world we freed gave us new perspectives on your technology. You thought yourselves invincible because you stood on the shoulders of those you conquered. Now they rise against you, armed with humanity's knowledge and their own determination. The battle transformed into a rout. Imperial ships, their systems compromised, fell prey to weapons they couldn't defend against. The mighty fleet that had gathered to crush the rebellion found itself trapped and outmaneuvered. Cthax watched his empire crumble before him. Ships were surrendering, their crews choosing survival over loyalty to a dying regime. Others attempted to flee, only to find their hyperdrives disabled by the rebels' technology. The Nemesis approached the Eternal Dominion, its massive form dwarfing even the Imperial flagship. "Supreme Overlord," Sarah transmitted, "your empire ends today. But unlike you, we don't believe in genocide. Surrender, and your people will have a place in the free galaxy we're building." In that moment, Cthax understood the true difference between his empire and this human-led rebellion. His power had been built on fear and domination. Theirs was built on hope and unity. He had ruled through force. They led through inspiration. The Eternal Dominion's shields lowered, followed by thousands of other Imperial vessels. Across the galaxy, news of the Empire's surrender spread like wildfire. Worlds that had lived under Imperial control for centuries celebrated their freedom. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the Nemesis, watching as former Imperial ships were integrated into the new Federation fleet. Representatives from dozens of species worked together, combining their knowledge and technologies to build something new from the ashes of empire. "Was this your plan all along?" asked Kix, the Zentarian engineer who had become one of her most trusted advisors. "To unite us all." Sarah smiled, thinking of the long centuries she had spent in stasis, preserving humanity's legacy until it could serve a greater purpose. "Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology," she said. "It was our ability to inspire others to rise above their fears. The Empire thought they destroyed us, but they really just ensured that our best qualities would be needed more than ever." As the newly freed galaxy began the process of rebuilding, the HSS Nemesis remained a symbol, not just of humanity's survival, but of the unbreakable spirit that could be found in every species. The Empire had tried to rule through fear, but they had never understood that hope, once kindled, was a force that no power in the universe could extinguish. The dawn of liberation had arrived, and with it, a new era where no species would ever again face oppression alone. Humanity's legacy lived on, not in dominion over others, but in teaching them to reach for the stars together.